only from Nintendo. Now you're playing with power, portable power.
Ah, the Game Boy. A handheld that needs no introduction. Being born in the mid-1980s, I got to experience firsthand the illustrious wonder of this small machine while it was well within its prime. I can still remember the adrenaline rush from taking my Game Boy to school, battling and trading Gen 1 Pokemon with my friends in the back of class, all while being careful not to flash it around our teachers, otherwise it was game over. I love this handheld, and I'm frequently asked if I can revive a Game Boy cart that's completely dead, or replace a battery to get a game to save again. Well, today, we're going to go over several methods of how not only to repair what would otherwise be considered a dead Game Boy cartridge, but we're also going to look at how we can change a dead battery to get those games to save again and to get back into the game. Let's get started. Now today, we're going to be looking at two different Game Boy games. The first game we're going to look at is my original childhood copy of Pokemon Red. This game no longer boots, and the save battery was long for the wind several years ago, so I know it doesn't save anymore, but now it also doesn't boot, so I'd like to try to fix that. And we're also going to look at this copy of Zelda Oracle of Seasons, because this uses a much smaller CR battery, and we're going to replace it too because there's a few little things I'd like to make note of. So let's start with the Pokemon Red here, and we'll just start by putting it in this Game Boy just to make sure I'm not crazy. And yes, we have the glitch screen here, and this is really all it does. The game doesn't initialize properly in the boot ROM, and it's not able to read the code and match it with what's in the BIOS here. So this ASCII character Nintendo, this ASCII set of characters, that's basically how the Game Boy authenticates. It reads these characters from memory on the game cartridge, and it runs it against the same code effectively in the BIOS ROM on the Game Boy. And if it matches, it boots. If it doesn't doesn't match, it does not boot. So having said that, let's go ahead and let's take this apart, and let's get into talking about how do you fix these things. Game Boy carts that fail to boot, is there really anything you can do? Well, guess what? 7 or 8 out of 10 times, there is something that you can do, and we're going to do it. Let's go. Okay, so we've taken our screw out here. Let's just pop the top off. And the board looks fairly normal. Nothing looks remarkably wrong here. Everything looks pretty good. The battery, obviously, as we said before, is well spent and is thoroughly dead. Actually, look, this battery has a date code of looks like June of '99. My God! So this is about this is really old. 19 years. So having said that, let's take this out and let's talk about, first of all, why do these games sometimes fail to boot, and why do they just stop working? When that could mean anything from the gibberish Nintendo logo, it doesn't get past that, or the screen might be white or full of characters if it does boot. Well, more often than not, if it's not a bad mask ROM, this is the actual mask ROM memory of this game. What happens is these Game Boy cartridges are on such a thin PCB substrate, and actually I want to get my calipers out here just to show you guys how thin this is. So let me zero these bad boys out here. Okay, that's good enough. And I'm just going to come in here and we're just going to do a little quick measurement here just to see how thick these games are. And we could probably round that up to maybe a millimeter at the most. That's a really thin, flimsy substrate. That's a very thin 2-layer PCB, and as you can see, I don't want to damage this, but this is very easily flexed. And what can happen is after hundreds or tens of hundreds or tens of a trillion zillions cycles that you put this into a Game Boy, and you cycle this cartridge in and out, in and out, in and out, like this, in and out, what happens is these solder joints here on the mask ROM and in other places, they can fatigue, they can become weak, they can become brittle, and they break. So the first order of business is don't get out the multimeter, don't start buzzing continuity to make sure everything's connected. Screw all of that, get right to the solder, and let's reflow these pins. And I always start with the mask ROM because it seems to be this chip here and the location and the way the board flexes when you take things in and out, this chip has the most tendency to fatigue these joints. The joints are most prone to fatigue, it seems in my experience, in this area. So we're going to start with the mask ROM, and we're going to reflow this we're going to reflow this mask ROM, and then we're going to immediately test. So let's do that now. And I'm going to use my my K-Series tip here. It's just a nice knife edge. And I'm going to zoom in here, and we're going to reflow this chip. And we're not going to do them all. We're going to do them one by one. And we're going to start with this chip. We're going to do a reflow, and then we're going to test. So let's zoom in, and let's do that now. Okay, guys, I hope we're zoomed in well enough here. I'm just going to take my K-Series knife edge tip. I'm going to load up some solder. Not too much, but not too little. Just a nice little float of solder there that'll live on the edge of that tip. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of my no clean, and I'm just going to run it across these pins, like so. That way we can get some good wetting action, and I hope this stays in focus, and I hope that you guys can see what I'm doing here. But I'm just going to do a little dragging technique, where I'm going to press firmly down on the chip. I'm just going to come in here. We're going to do a sweep away. We're going to sweep away. We're going to sweep away, and we're going to leave the iron on these pins just long enough so that, you know, capillary action will take place, and we'll get thorough wetting. And then I'm just going to do some dragging. After I do a few sweeps, I'm just going to start doing some dragging. I'm just going to go down the way. I'm just going to reflow this as well as we can. There we go. Just drag away very fast. Okay, nice little sweeping motion. Okay, that side's done. Let's see if we can. There's a lot of light in here, but I think that's pretty viewable there. Oh yeah, for sure. So we reflowed this side. I'm just going to swing this bad boy around like so. I think that's a pretty good shot. I think you'll be able to see this maybe even better. So I'm just going to come on this side. Again, with no clean, a bead going down those pins. I'm going to clean off my tip. I'm going to reapply solder right here to the knife edge. Fantastic. And we're just going to do the same thing on the other side. So here we go. Let the heat travel, give it some time, and I'm just going to do some sweeping. Sweeping. Go down the line and sweep. Great, now I'm going to clean my tip off because I'm only interested in moving what solder I've delivered to the pins around to the pins without adding any more solder. So now I'm just going to do my dragging. Nice and easy, all the way down. Just like that. Beautiful. See if we can make that a little clearer for you to see. Oh yeah, that looks fantastic. So now that we've reflowed the mask ROM, let's go ahead and stuff it back into the Game Boy cartridge, and let's put it in this Game Boy Advance, courtesy of Steve Kulov, and let's see if this game boots. Let's do it. Alrighty, so we're just going to take our Game Boy PCB here and put it back in the nice Pokemon Red housing, like so. And we're not going to put the screw in there because we want to make sure, well, first we've got to do the battery, but we want to make sure that we're good. We very well might have to reflow other chips, so let's do it. Hot dog. There it is. And we're booting. And we're working just fine. So let's go in here. And let's just see. Yeah, see, new game. So the battery's absolutely dead. And the good news is, we revived this dead Game Boy cartridge here. Pokemon Red's working. Now, the fun part was over. Now, the second to fun part is removing this battery. Now, let's talk about batteries for a moment. A lot of these older cartridges use a 2025, a CR 2025 battery. I personally like to use a CR 2032 battery. It's the same voltage, and it's a little bit bigger in real estate in terms of its size, but because it's bigger, it has a higher capacity, and it'll last just that much longer. So we're going to remove this battery, and we're going to replace it with a CR 2032. Again, this is a CR 2025. We're going to swap it with a CR 2032. Let's do it. Okay guys, we're zoomed in nice and tight again, and again, I'm going to start by just loading up my tip here with some fresh solder so we'll get a good thermal bridge between the tip and these landings here. And I'm going to first start by reflowing some solder here on this side. While I do that, I'm just going to simply lift up just like that, and we're going to rotate this around. I want to do the other side, same principle. We're going to float the tip above the solder here, and it just comes off just like that. And we're left with two beautiful landings here. And what we can do, if you really want to, I don't think it's totally necessary, we can just sort of introduce some fresh tin in there and some fresh solder. We're going to mix the chemistries up a bit. This is perfectly fine. It's perfectly healthy. So we have some nice fresh solder. It lowers the melting temperature based on what I'm using, and it just knocks that oxidation off just a little bit more. So I want to jump into my bag here, and I want to grab a replacement battery, like so. Now, if you want to, you can add just a drop of flux here. You probably don't need to. This is going to wet fairly well, but, you know, if you want to, that's fine. So I want to bring my tip in here, and I want to load this up very generously, like so. I'm just going to take my hands, and I have the battery in position to where I want it, as you can see here, and I'm just going to take, maybe do like a 2 count, 1, 1,000, 2, 1,000, drop it down just like that. And we have a nice fillet here. This looks really good. I'm just going to rotate this around so you can see the other side. Again, if you want to, just a drop. I know it looks like I'm pouring a pool on there, but that's really just a drop. We're really zoomed in here. But at any rate, we're going to come in here. We're going to reflow, just like so. Hold it down, just like that. Beautiful joints. And that's a 2032 battery there in place of the 2025. It gives you a longer battery life, and it just, there's really no reason to use a 2025 in my opinion. But I'm just going to get some angled shots here so you can see that the beautiful fillet there underneath and over. And as far as the positive side of our battery, it looks just as good. So, that's it. Well, I've got to tell you guys, I am so happy to have my childhood copy of Pokemon Red working again. I'm just going to put it back together here, and you'll notice that the top shell clears just fine with no problems. There is not a clearance issue with using the CR2032 battery. Let me just pop this screw back in here like so, and whoops, if I can do that, I think I can. Okay, let's just give it a little shot here. And I believe we're still in business. Fantastic. So this is fixed and this is done. I said we had another game to look at, Oracle of Seasons, and why would we want to look at this? Well, this game works fine. The battery still works for now, but that battery, it looks a little suspect here. It looks different than the battery we just replaced, so let's take this apart and let's take a look at it. Now, Oracle of Seasons is a Game Boy Color game, but notice the battery size. Now, if you look here at the mask ROM says that this is a CR1616, and this is the same battery that you would find in games such as, Pokemon Silver and Gold and Crystal. But look, this is the battery we just removed from Pokemon Red. Holy sh**! Is that a huge size difference? Now, if you're going to be replacing the battery in games that use a real-time clock, like Gen 2 Pokemon, the games that use a real-time clock drain the battery much, much faster than games that just hold save data. Because, games with a real-time clock, they're constantly having to count the time. Can you replace, in Pokemon and these other games, these small batteries with a much larger battery? And the answer is you absolutely can, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Not only can you replace the smaller battery with a large CR2032 battery, but it's not too big to where it won't fit back into the shell. So we're going to remove this battery just like we did before. We're going to replace it, and we're going to make sure we have no clearance issues. Let's do it. And just as before, we're going to load our tip up just a bit here so we can create a nice thermal bridge. And I'm going to go ahead and place my finger over the battery. And I'm just going to reflow the solder here on one of the tabs. It should go very fast, and then we're just going to lift up, just like that. That side's free. I'm going to rotate the cartridge PCB around, and we're going to do the other side. Same principle, reflow, and lift the tab. Like so. Very good. So now we have our area here. And I'll tell you what I'm going to do. There's some unspent flux here. This is a non-corrosive chemistry, obviously, but I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to clean this up. Just because I don't like looking at that. I'm just going to douse a bit of here, douse a bit of isopropyl on here, and we're just going to cut through this real fast. That's much better. Okay, let's get our battery in position here. And remember, this battery is much, much larger, so let's see if we need to do any trimming or anything like that, and we don't. You really don't have to. The battery, the landings here in the footprint, it should match up pretty damn well. Okay, so I'm going to put a generous amount of solder back onto my tip like so. And I'm going to bring our battery in here. First of all, I'm going to make sure that, see the negative symbol here, I've got the polarity correct. You certainly want to check that before you get started. But at any rate, I'm going to come in here, and I'm just going to reflow the solder like so. I'm going to bring it in. I'm going to drop the battery down. I'm just going to let go. Just like so. And then I'm going to come to the other side. I'm going to rotate this around. So you can see this side. And this might hang over just a bit, but that's perfectly fine. Actually, it probably won't by the time I get in here and finagle that in. So we'll come in here like so. And we're just going to reflow that solder around that battery lead just like that. Don't mind the little splash there. That won't hurt anything. And that looks pretty good. I'm going to come back over here. I'm just going to make sure that we have a good fillet of solder underneath and over. And what you can do is you can actually just introduce some fresh if you want, but try to work fast. You don't want to heat these up too much. Just like that. And that looks really good. So here we have it. We have both sides here soldered in quite nicely. And what I'm going to do is, again, I just don't like looking at it. It's not going to harm anything. It's good enough for me. So there's our battery. Let's see if it clears in the new case. Okay, here's our case. Let's just drop the game in there like so. That's in. And we're just going to drop the top on there. And it clears beautifully. It clears absolutely beautifully. So this battery will last probably several years longer than the CR1616 will, just because of the capacity of this battery. So having said that, that pretty much concludes this video. Maybe next time we'll talk about how to dump or archive the save data that's on carts that haven't exactly gone south yet, so that after you replace the battery, you can load your save files or your SRAM states back into memory. And you can actually do that with a Retron 5, as a matter of fact, if you have one of those. But nonetheless, guys, this was just a quick video to help some of you out there who constantly ask about repairing and sort of restoring and resurrecting, in a lot of cases, Game Boy games. I hope this helps, and we'll catch you next time. See you later.